Good morning, church. I don't know about you, but I got a little distracted there, sitting in the pew, listening to that music. I'm just sitting in there, jamming in my head, just keeping on going, and then it came to an end. I'm like, oh, we're already at the end already. Okay, let's get moving. I love Jazz Sundays. But that song, yes. That song, Take Up Your Cross, that sticks in my head, just that phrase, take up your cross and follow. It's a very good description of what we're called to do as the church. To follow Christ's example, take up our cross and follow him. And this is not always an easy thing, because if you picture something like that, it can't be very easy to drag that thing around. It's hard work, but it's what we're called to, and it's good work. And we're doing the work. And I'm very proud of us for doing that work. And I'm going to be open and very vulnerable with you today. Because I'm struggling. I am really struggling today. The past 4 weeks, we've been talking about grace. Over and over about grace and more grace. And I'm so happy because I can see that you have all taken it to heart and you're putting it into practice. And I know I can trust you. I know I can be vulnerable with you. And I know that you'll extend that grace to me. I'm going through a lot of emotional struggle right now. Not only do I have my now daily struggles with anxiety and PTSD, but just yesterday I had an emotional bomb dropped on me that I still don't know how to deal with. I had a phone call, and it was rough. I can't say it was unanticipated, but there's some stuff going on that really hits me to my core and a lot of people really close to their core, and it is a major struggle. And it makes me want to just sit, not do anything, and to no longer work anymore. But I endure because I see your work of grace, church, and it encourages me. I endure because I have work, and the work I have is here. And I know that together we can push through that struggle. We can push through whatever struggles any of us have. Because I see you, I see us doing this work all the time. And it's important to see the work that we do and to recognize the work that we do. Because the way I grew up, pride was a very big thing to avoid. And quite often, pride was defined as anything that could possibly be good that you did that you even acknowledge. You can't acknowledge anything that you've done because that is prideful. But I'm here to tell you that is not prideful. It is not arrogant. It is a very good thing to recognize the work that we do. That's what they are doing in Acts. That's what Peter is doing when he's writing to his audience. Recognizing the good work that the apostles are doing. Recognizing them for the excellent work that they're doing. The author of Acts, Luke, specifically calls out the followers of Jesus for their acts of grace. He calls them wonders and signs. But those wonders and signs aren't just limited to 2,000 years ago. We see wonders and signs today. They're just in a slightly different format. And we need to know how to open our eyes and see them for the truth of what they really are. Because we hear these 5 words week after week: prayers, presence, gifts, service, and witness. It's how we can engage with the church, and it's how we can engage with our gifts for the benefit of all. And we see those 5 things in play with these apostles in the book of Acts. We see them being devoted to their prayers. We see them being devoted to the presence. We see them bonding together all the time. We see them engaging their gifts and gaining the goodwill of the people. We see their service in them distributing everything that they needed to whoever needed it. And we see their witness constantly praising God, letting everybody know that this is the work of God. And church, we see those similar gifts here at First United today. We give our prayers, presence, gifts, service, and witness every day. Every Sunday we have here our community prayer after the sermon. We come up here and we pray for each and every specific thing that's on our hearts. We pray for the classes in between the Sunday services. We pray before and during our classes on Wednesday. We are constantly devoted to prayer for each other. If you even look in your bulletins, you always see a list of the prayer requests of those people in our community who need prayer. We are constantly devoted to those prayers. We are devoted to our presence. We're constantly showing up here. Every Sunday, I am so glad to see every single one of you showing up here. We show up to the classes on Sunday morning. We show up to the classes on Wednesday. We show up to all the other different events throughout the week that we schedule. We're constantly devoted to the presence, both with ourselves and in our community. And we engage with all of our gifts. We use the gifts that we've been given for the benefit of the church and for the benefit of our community. We are constantly having volunteers do things all over the place. We have the see something, clean something. We've got hospitality. We've got Steve, who's making food and bacon and all this stuff for our Wednesday classes for Sunday. But the thing is, we're not just doing these things. We are not just looking for somebody to set something up and then filling in. We're doing the good service. We are taking initiative. We are setting these things up. We are creating these things, and we are leading these things as needed. We needed cleaning help, and so we started, and we have leaders in our community that have taken ownership over See Something, Clean Something. This church has taken ownership. We have, even after the vandalism, we had our own church members step up and start our security team because we are engaging with our gifts. We know what we can do, and we are doing it. And I am very proud of this church for doing that. And when we look in that epistle of 1 Peter, we see Peter commending the church for doing all these things. But he also encourages them. He points it out and says, yeah, you're doing this thing, and you're doing well. Keep it up. Keep extending that grace. Not only was he just recognizing them for continuing in grace and asking them to keep on continuing in grace, but he was encouraging them to continue even when things got tough. Because things do get tough. I mean, we saw that with the vandalism. We were continuing in our work, and then we had this vandalism happen. And it would be easy for us to completely shut down, for us to stop working and to isolate, reform, and just turtle up and be isolated from the rest of the community. But that's not what we did. We opened it up. We tried to open communication. We are opening communication, and we are working to extend grace to all. Peter calls his audience the church. He calls them aliens and strangers in their own homes. They lived there, but they were aliens and strangers because they were doing the good work even when their society told them otherwise. It's easy for us to look at things and say, yes, grab that person, track them down, lock them up, throw away the key, I never want to see them again. That's easy because you don't have to extend grace. You don't have to think. You don't have to try. But that's not what this church is about. We try to extend grace. Those people that Peter was writing to, they were doing the right thing, but they were ostracized for it. They must have felt completely and utterly alone. But they still continued to do the right thing. Jesus even recognized this. In the book of Luke, there's a story about a whole bunch of people going to synagogue on a whatever it was, Saturday, Sunday morning, whatever it was, they were going to their church, and a bunch of the rich people were all coming in, and they were pouring all their money into this offering plate. And what some of the people would do at the time is they would get the money that they were going to donate, and they would put it in smaller denominations. So rather than putting a 20 in the plate, they'd get 80 quarters or something, a couple rolls of quarters, and then drop it all in individually so it made a really big noise so that everybody could notice how pious they were and how good they were for donating so much money. And so with all of this happening, with all these people showing off, donating all their money and everything, a widow walks up. Now in the society, the widows were ostracized. They had no rights. They had no property. They had no money. But this widow comes up and she had 2 coins, 2 small coins. And among all this chaos of everybody dumping in their tons of money, it'd be easy to have 2 coins in your hand, look at it and say, my 2 coins aren't going to do anything. I'm just going to turn around and walk away. But this widow didn't do that. She walked up and she put her 2 coins in. And Jesus pointed that out. Say, look at that. This lady has done more than anybody else here because she took what she had and she gave it. What little she had was everything to her, and it's everything to God. Even in our modern world, there are stories similar to this, because in our legislature, there are a lot of bills that are being tried to be pushed through, and there are a lot of people who oppose these bills. And I heard a story about somebody who has been going to the legislature constantly to speak out against these bills, and they thought they were alone. They thought they were alone, and there's no guarantee that one person going and talking to the legislature is going to do anything. But they knew it was the right thing, and they knew this is what they could do, and they did it. They found out about justice in action, and they were excited because they heard about our Nehemiah assembly that's coming up, because there are other people doing the work. They're not alone. There's a lot of encouragement there. They have been encouraged, and it strengthens them to continue the work and to add their voice to the ever-growing cloud of witnesses to push for goodness, to push for grace. And I know we all experience tough times. We all experience really, really bad times. And it can threaten to shut down grace, to shut down our work, to keep us from using our prayers, presence, gifts, witness, and service for the benefit of all. These times, the worst of times, are when we need this encouragement to keep going. The lended strength from our community. Because as Dr. King put it, what affects one directly affects all indirectly. When you start to notice something, naturally you start to notice the opposite. When you notice good, you start to notice the evil more. When you notice grace, when you start looking at grace, you start to notice all the powers fighting against grace. And if you start noticing all that negativity, it can be easy to think, oh man, all this negativity is cropping up. This is not going to be worth it. This is not going to work. But no, we have to endure, and we do endure. I have seen you endure. I see you endure, church. When you see good, you also see evil. When you see justice, you also see injustice. It's always like a coin. There's always 2 sides to every coin. When we start to see grace and start to work grace, we start to see more where that grace is actually needed. And it's a call to continue pushing and to continue doing that grace. Because when we push for it, the systems that perpetuate the need for grace even fight back. But what does it mean to endure? When Peter says endure, what does endure mean? I miss those questions all the time because these are words that you just assume you know what they mean, and so you don't even give it a second thought. But our Wednesday night class, one of our Wednesday night scholars asked that question, what does it mean to endure? And I had to think about it a little bit more. I was like, oh, well, maybe it means something different than what I initially thought. So I looked it up, and in the dictionary it just says to continue in the same state, or to remain firm under suffering without yielding. And that reminded me that Paul, in the book of Philippians, wrote about this. He said, in essence, the definition of endurance is to push for the goal, even though you haven't gotten there yet, but to push for the goal. Always be pushing. How many of you would like to snap your fingers right now and immediately solve all the problems in your life and immediately solve all the problems in the world with no bad consequences whatsoever? That's what I would want to do. I would love to do that. Unfortunately, that's not quite how things work. That we want things to be perfect, but they're not. But we can push and work towards that. And the work of endurance is to do a little bit towards and to keep moving towards it. The work of grace is to put 2 coins in the offering basket. The work of grace is to do the things that we're doing, because grace is always worth doing. Even if we don't fix everything, even if we help one, we help all. Even if we help one, we help all. And you, church, have definitely helped. You have definitely helped way more than one. You have helped me at the worst of my times. And you have continued to help me. You have continued to help Kirsty, Katie, John, and the entire community here. I recognize the fact that you are doing this grace. You are working to keep these doors open for anybody and for everybody. We see new members coming in all the time. We see our Wednesday night classes constantly thriving and growing and shifting and changing like a living being should. We see the security team forming. We see something and we clean something. We're doing things, and they are very good things. And I want to keep on encouraging you, church. You are doing an excellent job. I see this. We are doing an excellent job. I appreciate you so much. And I also want to exhort you to endure. Just keep doing it. Keep doing what you're doing because you're doing a good job. You have all helped me endure. You have all helped so many other people endure. And you have endured through much. You have endured through the vandalism. You have endured through financial crisis. And we have come out on the other side stronger. You endured through a pandemic. And we have come out the other side stronger, and we have come out the other side with a stronger ministry, with a more robust ministry, with an online ministry, with a growing ministry. Church, we are doing well. You are doing well. And like they did in Acts, where they sat together and ate together and praised God together, let us celebrate together. Let us celebrate God's work, God's grace, our work, and the grace we extend, and the grace that we continue to do well. Thanks be to God.
Thanks be to God.